Our panel is back. Melanie Mason, California Bureau Chief for Politico, and Stephen Olikara, Senior Fellow at the USC Schwarzenegger Institute. Welcome, both of you. Melanie, some of these really intense ICE operations started in California over a year ago now, and now we are seeing them around the country. A little different recently without Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino, not as in your face, but still happening. And we've seen ICE enforcement pick up really in the last few weeks. This immigration issue, so important in the politics of Donald Trump.
Well, right. I mean, partially because that is such a core issue to Donald Trump. But I think what you noted is really important is that this does feel sort of substantially different from what we did see in Los Angeles and even in Minnesota, where there was almost a performative aspect to the ICE agents coming in. They really wanted to make it clear that their presence was known. Meanwhile, I think what we've seen more recently is that there are these operations continuing and in fact escalating, but not necessarily sort of attracting the same crowds where they're having these face-offs with protesters. And so I think, though, that you have now these two shootings in quick succession that I think elevates this issue once again, and I think brings us back to those very volatile moments of last summer or in January in Minnesota, where people just felt this so viscerally.
And that other shooting you're talking about, it just happened in Texas as well. And in both of those shootings, Stephen, no body cameras, even though they're supposed to be body cameras.
Without body cameras, now the American public are trying to red team, blue team these unfortunate shootings and allow the reality to fit into their own narratives. The fact is we don't know exactly what happened, and it's tough to trust exactly what the DHS is saying, because what they said in Minnesota didn't actually comport with the body cam footage we had there. And so police and across the country in many cases are required to have body cameras. I think that was one of the key reforms that Democrats were pushing for unsuccessfully with ICE. And now as a result, what we're seeing is the American people are just losing their confidence in ICE. Even though most Americans want to see border enforcement, they don't want to see these types of killings on the street. ICE is targeting their gardeners or people in their community. And that's not the character of the American public that we want to be projecting. And also, what Vice President J.D. Vance will say is that in order to do immigration enforcement, it's just messy to conduct it. I think that's a cynically low bar for the American public, and Americans deserve better than that.
Right, and that issue of body cameras, part of the reason that those Minnesota shootings caught so many people's attention and really changed the narrative on this whole thing, just like what we had with George Floyd, why that was, it was all caught on camera, and people were able to see it and feel it. And it went beyond, as your point, about the red and blue teams, and there's something about video, and when it doesn't exist, it's really hard.
Well, right, and then you're just relying on sort of eyewitnesses, or you're relying on video that we see that's right after the aftermath, but we don't actually know when ICE is trying to claim that this person was trying to use their vehicle in a way that was threatening public safety. There's just absolutely no way to verify that one way or the other. And I think what will be interesting to see is, body cameras are one key aspect. The other thing that was so key in some of these other incidents were cell phone cameras more broadly, and will more footage perhaps come up in the next couple days, more things that people can sort of pick apart the scene and understand a little bit more what happened.
And meanwhile, in the last hour, we were talking about Lindsey Graham. He was part of this gang in the Senate that was trying to do immigration reform. That never happened. They've been trying to do immigration reform for some 40 years. That hasn't happened. And we're farther away now than it seems like almost ever.
Yeah, well, I appreciate what the mayor said, that we need immigration reform, and this is not what it looks like. The reason why we're seeing this violence on the street is it's directly resulting from politicians, especially in Washington, who have found it more profitable to keep immigration reform essentially on the ballot. There needs to be an orderly process for people who are here without documentation. Unfortunately, in this case, this was someone, a 26-year-old, who was here actually legally. And so we need some real reforms, and we need
a work permit.
A work permit in order to be here, but still following the law. This is not what even people who voted for Donald Trump in the 2024 election signed up for. What Trump had said was that he was going to go after violent criminals, and instead we're seeing the violence from ICE.
And you, Stephen, talk so much about storytelling and how we can use storytelling principles of Hollywood to change the political narrative. And you pointed out something really interesting, that for folks from around the world who have come to America, on the one hand, they're seeing this ICE shooting. On the other hand, they're seeing the World Cup. And sort of the change there. I mean, talk about that contrast and the World Cup diplomacy that's going on right now.
Yeah, I think this dynamic explains for some of the shock that foreigners have had coming to the United States and realizing that the narratives about America being this incredibly dangerous place, defined by ICE shootings, is not all that America is. Because when they're going to these World Cup games, they're finding that they're being welcomed and that they're being included in this American life that we have going on. And on top of that, they're discovering some amazing things about America. They love our Texas barbecue. They love ranch dressing, which I love particularly as a Wisconsinite. They love Costco. And so this is citizen diplomacy at its best. And so that's why I think as we look at this entire World Cup experience, the United States might have lost in the tournament, but we've won in terms of soft power.
And last point to you, Melanie, as a huge sports fan, your thoughts on the World Cup and how it sort of intersects with politics.
Well, I just think Stephen's point is so smart because it did feel like there was so much goodwill that was being accumulated. And I think there was a lot of questions in the lead up to this of how welcomed foreigners would be, given the sort of kind of nationalistic tone that we're hearing from the government now. And so I do think that now this ICE shooting and the fact that these narratives are resurfacing, in some ways I think maybe sets us back what I think was some really important accumulated goodwill over the last couple of weeks.
And hopefully we'll have more goodwill in these final days of the World Cup. Melanie, Stephen, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we're still rooting for America, but who knows? Do we have a pick for tomorrow?
Well, I have to go with Spain because I used to live there. So
Okay,
vamos España.
Yeah. I'll go with Spain.
Okay, there you go. All right, I'm now rooting for France. So there you go, just to be
The contrarian.